In this video, we will complete step 15, select a single cell. So we are going to allow our users to select a single cell of data using the brackets operator. So to select a single cell, the user needs to give us both a row selection and column selection. So the very last video, we began this method getItemTuple, which handled the case whenever a user would give us a row selection and a column selection. So this is what we're going to be working with. We're going to write the code within here. So if the user does give us a single row and single column selection, we will be able to process it here. So the first thing that this step requires us to do is to create a variable called row selection and another variable called column selection, and assign row selection to the first item of the tuple and call selection be assigned to the second item. So what we're going to do here is simply unpack our tuple. So let's go ahead and write this equals item. So item is guaranteed to be a 2-item tuple at this stage, which means we can use unpacking to put the very first item in row selection and the second item in call selection. Okay, so let's go ahead and keep reading over here. It says if row selection is an integer, reassign it as a one-element list of that integer. Okay, let's go ahead and do that. So if row selection is an integer, we are going to reassign row selection to be just simply a one-item list of that particular integer. Now I'm going to do this. If column selection is an integer, we're going to reassign it to a one-item list of the string name of the column it represents. Okay, so if call selection is an integer, so for instance, if the user has given us, say, 2, 3, well, 2 will become a list of just 2, and 3, instead of just being the list of 3, it will be the column name. So what we're going to do here is we're going to reassign this to be a list, but we're going to actually use our columns property and select it like this. So this will return to us the column name of that integer. So columns we implemented earlier. So we're just taking advantage of our earlier code that we've already implemented, and then we're going to put that inside of a list. Okay. Now, if column selection is a string, then we're going to assign it to a one-element list of just that string. So if it's already a string, then we're going to be, it's going to be okay the way it is. So let's do an if-else statement here. So if call selection, otherwise, if it's a string, we'll just reassign it as just a list of that string. So we're going to assume the user is passing us a column name that is a string there. Okay, so yes, now row selection and column selection are all lists containing one single item in them after they've gone through this. Now, what it says to do here is that we're going to write a for loop to go through every column selection, and then make a new dictionary, new data, and return just the rows for that particular column selection. In this case, there's only going to be one row per column selection, and in fact, there's only going to be one column selection. So this for loop will actually work for all the other steps in this getItemTuple. So this is going to be a generic for loop that we're going to build that will be used for the rest of the problem. So they will all of the other problems that 15 through 18 will be able to be solved. We'll be able to work with this particular for loop. Okay, so let's go ahead and create the new data dictionary. Okay, so again, a lot of these methods are going to use this new data. So we're going to create an entirely new dictionary and then pass that to our constructor. So let's go ahead and iterate through column selection. So for call in column selection. Here it's just one member. We're going to update this, so we're going to say new data of that call. We want it to be a NumPy array. So in this case, we're going to go ahead and get the NumPy array by just doing call. But we're going to use the row selection here. So row selection is, we're going to go ahead and say we're just going to select just those rows. So this returns us the underlying NumPy array. And NumPy arrays are able to use the brackets operator. So within the brackets, we're going to pass it the row selection. So this should work. And let's see what it returns here. So let's go ahead and return a data frame of this new data. So our code should only work right now whenever the row selection is an integer and the column selection is either an integer or a string. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at the Jupyter Notebook here and see if we can test this out live. So here is our pandas cub, df. So it should work if we're going to select, say, like the first row and maybe the second column. So this would be here. This is row number 1. It's 0 indexed. Column number 2, or with index 2, 0, 1, 2 would be height. So this hopefully should return 3.5. And it does. So that looks like it's working there. Let's go ahead and select a different one. So let's use a string like weight for one of the columns. And so that works as well. Okay, good. So everything looks like it's working. And let's go ahead and run the test that we need to run. And this time the test is called, right here, it's test single element. And let's see if it works. Okay, good. So it passed. Everything is green. And I've passed that test. So let's go back and make sure we understand that. So we're simply taking the case whenever row selection is an integer. We're going to make row selection a one-item list. If column selection is an integer, then we're going to make column selection a one list string, a one item or a list containing one item that's a string. If it is a string, then we'll just leave it as it is, but still make it into a one-item list. So the end result is that row selection and call selection are both lists. So we're going to iterate through all of the columns like this. We're going to create a new dictionary that's going to contain our data. And then we're going to make entries in our dictionary that have the column names, which are now strings, and we're going to map them to one-dimensional arrays. So this is the original array over here. This, we're going to select the original array, but we're only going to select these rows. And in this case, it's just a single row. But we're going to use the brackets operator to put the row selection in there, and then we'll call our own constructor with that new dictionary, which will return a completely new data frame. Okay, so that's it for step 15.